Hey there, everybody, and welcome. It is Wednesday, June 24th, 2020. We have a very exciting show in store for all of you today, breaking down a lot in all four major sports, pretty much. Gavin, it's an honor to have you back on the show halfway through the week. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a nice day outside. I think I might head outside after our formal show. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Played some golf last night. I mentioned that yesterday on the show. Actually won by one stroke, so I'm pretty excited about that. So a lot of exciting stuff moving forward. We're going to get into it. We know that we've been talking about it a lot this week, and we've been up and down about it. I don't think there's ever been a crazier week for baseball that has been interesting in a while. So let's start out with this. The MLB will return this year. The MLBPA officially agreed to terms with the MLB. This includes a 60 game schedule. According to some of the sources I've read, it appears that they're going to be playing 40 games in a division, and then the other 20 from the respective division in the American League or National League, depending on what your team is in. I expect a lot of the Yankees, Red Sox, Orioles, Blue Jays and the Rays in our division or who we're playing, and then the Braves, Mets, and all them playing in our division itself. So a lot going on for baseball. So guys, they're getting about 37% of their salaries, playing about 37% of the season from what I'm reading. There's going to be a DH for both sides this year. And then the most interesting role, in my opinion, in extra innings, they're putting a guy on second base to start out so they could speed it up. I don't know if that really relates to the virus at all. Maybe they just had time to say, okay, how can we speed up a game that's already known to be quite slow? So, Gavin, let's get it over to you. It seems like they did it. I know yesterday you weren't so optimistic, but how you feeling today?
Look. I'm happy that baseball's coming back, but I'm still not happy as well. Look, ladies and gentlemen, I don't care what anybody says. Let me make this very, very clear. I'm not a hater on baseball, but this is a bad look on baseball. So let me say this. Let me say this. I'm glad they got it. I'm glad they finally figured it out and they start listening. But we're not out of the water just yet, everybody. This is going to happen next year. Literally next year, this is going to happen again. Now the implements and the things they added and changed, it's pretty good. All right, I do agree with adding someone on second base in extra innings because it's not guaranteed you're going to make them move. But what's the one argument you can always make the case against baseball? It takes too long. You go to 20 something innings. You remember the World Series games, Zach, where it went to 20 innings? I went to sleep, woke back up, and they're still playing. I think this is a good step in the right direction because there's no ties in baseball. I don't know if this is just for this because of the coronavirus or anything, but this is what the plan is. I like it. Let's see how that works. You never know. DH, I think that benefits a lot of teams well. Also, but let me get back to the main point. What took you guys so long to figure out a decision on just to come back and play? Remember, the MLB declined a 70-game season just last week. They said it was impossible to do. So you subtract 10 games. And I could have sworn, correct me if I'm wrong, I could have sworn that they made a choice or had a decision already that was going to do a 60 game, and the MLB players said no. So, Zach, let me ask you this question. Do you think all this work by the MLB Players Association was just a big sell and a fail?
I don't really know what they accomplished. We know, I mean, are you trying to fight for more money or something? They're getting the prorated salaries, the proportional amount of the games played. I'd suggested that last week on the show. I mean, I don't understand what they were fighting for. You want more games, counter an offer. I don't get what the fight was. Are we fighting for more money? Are we fighting so that certain policies can be installed in coalitions like the NBA is trying to do with social injustice? I don't know what they're doing. Are they trying to get, like, I don't hear any safety protocols. There's coronavirus outbreaks in different MLB facilities right now. They're all closed for cleansing right now. I don't know what they were. I don't understand what their point was. What were they trying to do? Do you not want to play the game? Do you not care about baseball? And we've spoken about this so many times. It's bad enough that baseball's already lost its popularity. Other sports paces are just a lot more exciting, a lot more entertaining. Contracts are getting bigger in all four major sports. I don't understand what they attempted to accomplish. And it shouldn't be them. It shouldn't be the MLBPA versus the MLB. They're supposed to work together to provide us with America's pastime, quote unquote, which is dying. I don't understand what they were attempting to accomplish.
Well, I also want to say this too. We're big on this as well, and you're going to agree. I know you will agree with this. The whole money argument was just stupid, and it wasn't like they were speaking for the minor leaguers, the ones that don't make as much as they do. These are players that make in the hundred millions Bryce Harper, $330 million to be exact. Mike Trout, 400 something million. I think it's 50. These guys already have. If they miss a year, they're going to be fine. Some of them will be fine. Majority of them will be fine. These minor leaguers down here, they won't be all right. All right. We talked about if the real heroes right now, which are the people that are working at the grocery stores or the everyday workers, the ones that have been there doing this every day since the whole pandemic started. If they were to sit back and go, hey, we want more money, I could see why. I could totally get the argument because they're the ones that put themselves in harm's way. These guys have been sitting in their mansions or big houses or whatever, just complaining. Blake Snell and Bryce Harper opened his mouth too. So on a money aspect, there was no. I don't see what the part of this whole argument was. I think it was just a big deal, and I'm gonna say it. I said it once. I'm gonna say it again. There should have been no problem with this whole thing because this season never even started. There was no season yet. It was just spring training. For those who don't know, I'm gonna tell you guys again. Spring training, you play a couple games and everything is back to 0-0. All right. So what's the big deal? It's not like the NBA or the NHL or so on and so forth, who was in a regular season, who was about to go to the playoffs. I could see where they were coming from on how they can do this. These guys didn't even start yet. I still think this is a bad look for baseball. I don't care if they're returning or not. This is going to be known as a season of bickering and the love of the game dying, and it's going to be the same thing next year as well.
I agree, and I think that what you mentioned, and we've spoken about this so many times. If they said, okay, the minor leaguers need their money, that's a different story. Or if the guy's making the league minimum, which relatively speaking is still a lot of money, they want to go out there, they want to prove that they can actually play the game and potentially get themselves and their families financially situated. We talk about Scottie Pippen a lot, how he took a longer deal to make sure his family had money in the long term. A lot of guys are trying to do that. A lot of guys, this is a job for them, and they're trying to go out, they're trying to earn their money. When you have a guy like Blake Snell, and I get the setting he was in a Twitch live stream, it was asked on a question, and I think that funny enough, to go out there and say, I got to go get mine, that's an opinion you probably should have to yourself, and I'd probably be hypocritical if I said that that's a morally wrong thing. Of course you want to get your money, but consider the circumstances. He said, if I'm going to risk my life, I have to go get mine. Is that something he could think? Sure. But when you're making as much money as you are, and he just got a nice big deal 2 years ago as a Cy Young winner, now he's last year had a down year, but regardless of that, he's gotten paid. He's going to be financially situated for the rest of his life, most likely, if he continues to play as talented as he is. And look, I get it. I've been in a sports atmosphere. I know how hard it is to play sports. But when leagues are doing what they can to keep you and your teammates safe, and they're losing money, they're not going to make money from fans this year. So when they're doing all of that and they're giving you these proposals to turn them down for as long as you did, you are demonstrating disrespect. And finally, it's not even worth it because you folded at the end of the day and conceded to the MLB. And I'm not saying they should have held their ground for pride or anything because I want to watch baseball. I'm tired of watching this get worse. But let us not forget about this. And first of all, we've all forgotten about the Houston Astros scandal, it seems like. It seems like no one's talking about the cheating scandals right now because they're all upset with the MLB. In another way, this commissioner should still be on the hot seat. I get he wanted to give them immunity to get more information, and we're going to discuss. I believe tomorrow we're debating, Gavin, about the Houston Astros and how they were treated. But tracing it back to what's going on in baseball right now, baseball is decreasing in popularity naturally, and now it gets worse when you're bickering about money and you're letting teams cheat and you're doing all these things like this. It's just a hot mess right now for Major League Baseball. Let us not forget what has happened. This is a big scar. Even though the Band-Aid was put on, even though the bleeding stopped, the scar is still there. Let us be reminded of this throughout time and throughout remembering during a global pandemic what baseball players were saying and how they were acting.
Well, that's right. One last thing on my end is remember this, baseball. When fans, because look, and I'm talking to Blake Snell entirely. All right, you started this kind of, really. You had another player back you up vocally. Other players might have did it too, but not publicly. And for those that do Twitch streaming, just remember, your words still matter. All right, you're still speaking in public, whether you're in the safety of your own home or not. Like our words matter. We gotta be careful about what we say too, Zach. So I want to say this. I think the pressure on Blake Snell has turned up this year. You talk about you want to go get yours. Those are things that you say privately. I would say I want to go get mine and different things privately. I never come and say, oh, it's all about me, because you made it sound so selfish. So Blake Snell, this season, you better go off this year, because if you look average like you did last year or below, that's going to be a serious problem.
I have two final thoughts on that before we get to our next subject. To anybody that either intends to be or is a public figure, assume that everything you say, in no matter what kind of environment, can come back at you. So make sure you can adequately defend what you say.
Yeah.
And number two, do not let some bad eggs make you forget that there aren't hardworking Major League Baseball players, and even these guys who still care about their families trying to get paid, but they also still love the sport. Let's not forget that.
Well said. That is true.
All right, we're now going to shift over. Today is the soft deadline, according to a couple of different sources, not being taken entirely seriously as far as a last day to talk about it. Who's in and who's out? We already have two players that have been very outspoken talking about it. Obviously, Kyrie Irving is the one that has led the movement kind of in a way as far as for social justice purposes. But these other guys, the reasoning is for their health or perhaps for general health of your family. Let's start off today. We're going to talk about Avery Bradley, a guard for the Los Angeles Lakers, arguably one of the favorites in the Western Conference to win the NBA Finals. He talked about he has a son I read about that has a respiratory issue, and so it'd be unclear if he'd be able to go in the bubble with them. So it makes sense that they would go out. It would make sense that he would go out and would not play. We understand it. Adam Silver made it very obvious that he's not going to punish players. We speak about it a lot. We've repeated this a lot. So let me get some of your thoughts initially. Let's talk about Avery Bradley and the reasons that he decides to opt out.
Well, I've said it once. I'm gonna say it again. I'm with the players on this. You don't gotta go. And for a guy that has I forget how old his son is, but that's nothing. That's not a joke. When you have respiratory problems or illness, or it's not as strong as a normal person's, that he could die. Let that just sink in. He could die easily on things that wouldn't be as serious like a common cold. It might be serious to him. The coronavirus for people who are over the age of 60 who have weakened immune systems as well, or if you have they could die. Okay, this virus will knock you out if you have a compromised immune system. So I applaud Avery Bradley for not going because he realized what the bigger picture is, and it's his son, and his son can't go to the bubble with him because you're risking travel, which is not safe either. And these Disney workers, and I found this out the other day too. These Disney workers are going to and from home. If they're in the bubble as well, shouldn't they be in it to win it with you guys? Shouldn't they be sitting there with you guys? I don't know how that's going to work out. There could be extra money from the NBA coming into those guys, but they're traveling in and out too. So you got to also take that into effect. Let me get back to Avery Bradley. Avery Bradley was one of those guys that also spoke with Kyrie Irving and Dwight Howard on the issues on what's going on in the world. But that's not why he's singing out at the moment. I'm pretty sure he probably has other reasons, but his main reasoning was his kids. And that's been my whole stance this whole time was some of these players, they got families, and they're not always intact. Like some of these, like Trevor Ariza said he's not going to go because of his son. He doesn't want to miss out on time with his son. And what do I always say? Time is valuable. Tomorrow is not promised. You might not make it to the end of today. So Avery Bradley, if you're not going to go, that's fine. You got valid reason, and you're going to stay. Make sure your son's okay, which is by far all right. And we'll just see you next year. There's no harm. You got LeBron James and Anthony Davis on your team. They make up for you, like three of you already. So my question for you, Zach, is: do you think that will hurt the Lakers a lot though without Avery Bradley?
It depends. And so it's been an interesting dynamic all year for the Lakers as far as LeBron's over the past few years, what's more known as a point forward, they call the position now because of his handling abilities. He does bring the ball up a lot. It hasn't been uncommon for that ball dominant, smaller power forwards to really be taking over some of that roles over the past. So he might actually shift up and they might be looking to bump Danny Green down to the 3 and even bring in a guy like J.R. Smith, or they even just brought in Dion Waiters before this all started. So it's going to be interesting. But I do want to point out this, and it's important to emphasize this, and I get that we, as people who like to watch sports, we care about it a lot. A player on a championship caliber team has elected to not go to spend time with his family. Let that resonate with our viewers. You're getting paid a lot of money, we know that, but that's respect. That's a lot of respect to Avery Bradley. And so one thing, too, he talked about as well, not just the health side or his family side, but the social injustice side, and making sure that we can do what we can to keep our focus on the right things. And so Avery Bradley, him and the Players Coalition, they're working together right now to figure out what they can do. So Avery Bradley has been more under the radar the past few years. Now he's on a superstar team. He is now able to get well known. Utilizing that platform the way that we've spoken before is beneficial. So props to Avery Bradley for what he's doing. And I hope that next year, as things begin to resume to normal and we do have much more safer conditions out there, I do wish the best for Avery Bradley. And obviously this year, if the Lakers win a ring, he is definitely worthy of having it because of he is taking a sacrifice. I mean, he won't be on the court with that team, but I'm sure he'll be up to date with them, talking with them, doing whatever he can from the outside, looking in to kind of give them that support that they need.
Well, just a friendly reminder, too, just because he's not going doesn't mean at the end of it, if the Lakers win the championship, he still gets the ring, okay? If LeBron would have stood out and with family issues, and Anthony Davis and the Lakers would have win, he still gets the ring. He just wouldn't be there. That would now, because LeBron is a bigger stature than Avery Bradley, of course, the GOAT talk would be definitely changing because, well, you can say, well, he wasn't there. But no, I put Avery Bradley. Family is key and always will be key because at the end of the day, friends are here and there. You find maybe a couple friends that they're with you for life, but family's forever, no matter what. And he chose family, and that's really okay, and that's great. And I have no problem with it, and I think the rest of sports will have no problem with it. Next man up mentality. All right, J.R. Smith, it's go time. If that's the guy they're going to get, it's go time for J.R.
Yes, we'll definitely continue to report on that as that story progresses. According to different sources, J.R. Smith is a top candidate to come in to either be that starting two, and maybe we'll see what happens. It wouldn't shock me if Giannis misses a free throw and the Bucks and the Lakers are tied, and J.R. Smith dribbles the ball out to half court before giving it to Danny Green to chuck up a last second three that really wouldn't count. But as we talk about the past finals, let's shift gears now, talking about Davis Bertans, who is on the Washington Wizards. It's a contract year. He's had the injury bug quite himself. He's really coming to his own this year. The Wizards have some talent on that team, and so we spoke about on our very first show about Bradley Beal's ability to carry them into the playoffs. Well, now it gets a lot harder. Davis Bertans is deciding to opt out. I haven't read fully into his reasonings, but it's a contract year and it is stirring up some controversy. So maybe not risking injury. I mean, he's a healthy guy right now, but I'm curious, Gavin, some of your thoughts on a role player like that on a team that's on the bubble and how that could potentially change the minds of other players that are currently, their teams are outside of the playoffs right now.
Well, the Wizards on the outside looking in. I will say this, though. Bertans' reasonings were he had multiple ACL injuries, right? I could see that. But like we say about load management, if you're healthy, play. All right? You're fine. Go play. If you was like, well, the virus, okay, then I can understand that. But your reasoning is for free agency and next year, just go play. Go show teams that you're worth even more money than what you're projected to get. Because right now, I think he's trying to get like $100 million, and right now, he's probably worth $50 million. Go play. Just go play. There's no reason why you shouldn't go play. I think you should play because you're healthy. I say the same thing about Kawhi Leonard. Load management after 2 years of your injury, that's bogus. Go play. You're fine. Go and Michael Jordan played every game, every game without any rest. Go play. He said, this is soft. Go play. We say the same thing about LeBron, Steph Curry, all those guys. James Harden. Go play. All right? There should be no reason. It's okay. At the end of the day, and the NBA is a business and you got to look out for yourself. I get it. But it's more guaranteed than football. Football, you get one hit and then you're done. All right? All right? And like Paul George came back from a gruesome leg injury. Look at Paul George. He's going. He's playing. He didn't say, well, I hurt my leg and I don't think I should come back to Indiana. It's going to ruin my summer. Just go play. I'm tired. I was with Bertans yesterday, and then I looked into it more and I read, and I'm like, just go play because that's bogus.
Right, and talk about the reasoning. It's not about the action in itself. We do understand a lot of the people, obviously Avery Bradley, who has chosen to sit out for a guy like Bertans. I mean, there's apparently been comments, I don't know if it was him or someone else, to go down there and isolate just to get swept by the Bucks in the first round. Well, I mean, you got to be with your team. If you got no other reason to stay out, I mean, being with your team is important. If you're worried about an injury, you're not worried about leaving your family or health, things like that, then you should go be on that bench with your team if you're not going to play. And at that point, he would play if he was there. So I don't know. It doesn't look great if I'm a GM right now seeing this situation. Again, with Avery Bradley, it's different. I have to look into the Bertans situation more as it continues to progress. I'm sure he'll have some comments moving forward. It's an interesting move for him. And so it's a shame for the Wizards because they really can potentially get that 8 seed. They're the one team that Adam Silver and the organization as a whole have decided is worthwhile going down to Orlando and potentially competing. There have been 1-8 upsets before. I'm not going to say it's going to happen. I'm not very confident it's going to happen, but you can go out there and you can prove what you're worth, like you said, Gavin.
Well, here's the thing too. I also want to put this out too. Avery Bradley, and I'm going to separate the reasons because I am with the players. But this one, you look at Avery Bradley, family reason. Trevor Ariza, family reasons. Victor Oladipo is more of a if the team would like him to go. I remember Victor Oladipo just came back from a torn quad and something else in his knee, so they're kind of like, hey, if you're physically able to, and this is the team. It's not Victor Oladipo's like, I'm not going. This guy is literally singing out because he doesn't ruin his summer, which is fine. But I'm gonna look if I'm Bradley Beal, and I know John Wall's not there, but if I'm Bradley Beal, I'm like, I don't have John Wall with me. Not everybody else on this team can ball. You're kind of all I got. Not all I got, but like you're part of what I got. If you're healthy, go play, dude. You see that's crazy. Because like if I'm healthy, let's say like I'm healthy and Zach and you're healthy too, but I have recent injuries in the past and we're going to Orlando and I'm like, you know what? I wouldn't want to go. How do you think the teammates would feel because you're just singing out for yourself? That's the same thing we said about Blake Snow. You're talking about yourself. Bertans, just go play, man. Just go play.
You think about the game where Scottie Pippen decided to sit out that final play because he wasn't getting that last shot, how his teammates looked down on him after that, even though he's well known as a good guy. And there's a saying out there, Warren Buffett said, it can take 20 years to build your reputation and 20 seconds to destroy it. And if you think about that, you might do things quite differently. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what kind of deal he gets this summer. We'll see moving forward from there. We're going to learn more on it tomorrow, more. And it's a soft deadline, so we're going to hear more about it. We're going to continue on the basketball conversation, and then following our next topic, we'll be having our guest on. So let's talk about now going across the seas to Serbia, talking about Nikola Jokic. He has been diagnosed with COVID-19. He is currently not allowed to enter back in the U.S. They expect a week from now, give or take, to once he gets his double negative test, to let him back in the country, go back to Denver, begin going through the whole thing with his team. We already knew he had lost a significant amount of weight. According to some reports, the virus doesn't really help with eating either. I'm curious if that's going to have any effect on him. But currently with COVID-19, he says he's feeling good. He's asymptomatic, which seems to be a theme among a lot of these young players who have unfortunately contracted the virus. So, Gavin, I'm curious to hear what are some of your general thoughts on this. Maybe not right now. There was a tennis player as well he was hanging out with who got tested positive as well. So, looking forward, at least he's going to be one guy for them. If it is true that you can't contract the virus twice, you're not going to have that worry with your most valuable player on your team. But from the humane side, having the virus itself, for Jokic, it's unfortunate. We talked about before his presence in the paint now that he's lost some weight. Yeah, I'm curious to get some of your thoughts on that.
Well, first I want to touch on the virus side, and I'll touch on the other side. Look, I as a teammate of Nikola Jokic, I would feel like with Rudy Gobert, I kind of don't want him to touch me. Almost, even though the virus is gone, but you ever heard of things like after you have a cold and you feel fine, but the germs are still on you? That's what I'm kind of thinking of. So it's gonna I want to see how the guys are gonna react to Nikola Jokic and if they're still gonna be, all right with him being around. Now, back to Nikola Jokic losing weight. Yes, the virus makes it hard for you to eat, and obviously, when you're losing, he lost a lot of weight. For him to not be eating that much, I want to see how that works. I still think Nikola Jokic might get bullied around in the post, just go around in the playoffs because you don't have that force, that driving power that you can be able to move people around. Now you're going to be the person being moved around, and there's a lot of good centers out in the Western Conference that have no problem with just being like, hey, give me the ball, I'm gonna back this little kid down. So having a look at Nikola Jokic, and he hasn't really, I don't want to say because he might have, but he hasn't, because we saw him at a basketball game. That's where the picture got out. He looked really skinny. It doesn't look like he's really been taking the COVID-19 really seriously that much. He was hanging out with a tennis player that tested positive. So I got to look at Nikola Jokic. I'm like, well, first of all, you got to hope you can get back into the country. And you got to hope that when you're going back into the country, nothing else happens. So I don't know. This is kind of unfortunate situation for both Denver and him. I have to see how this goes.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be an interesting case, like you said, how confident a player is going to be around him. The Jazz situation, there have been rumors of some friction between Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. Now, Jokic obviously out of the country right now, not unlikely near any other of his teammates, but coming back into the country, it can be a little bit interesting. But one thing too, Gavin, to think about, I wonder this: what if? And you think about it, assuming that, and again, we're not going to be scientists on this show. We're not going to break down anything from a medical side. But if you are immune to the virus after fully being finished with it, could that potentially be a foreseeable advantage for a team like Utah or even now potentially Denver? What if there is an outbreak for a team, and as Adam Silver said, they would continue the season, continue testing guys, things like that. They want to keep it going. Could there be a chance that Utah could go further than we think because of that?
Well, if you got to think about, all right, so two out of the whole team on Utah, which is Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, arguably their best players. They don't coexist with each other. I'm pretty sure they don't. But if the whole team gets sick and they're the only two guys, you got to look at, but hey, they're around them. So I think this is an advantage for players that had it, such as like Marcus Smart and others, and the few Sixers players that were not named, and also a couple Lakers players that weren't named as well. So you got to look at it. I think that this might be an advantage. And I think that might be the key at going down in life moving forward. I'm not no scientist, but if that's the case and you have a better immune to it because now that your body knows what it is and it can fight it off better or perhaps stop it from coming back, I got to look at this and be like, well, wait a minute. Well, Utah is set up perfectly because both of their stars had it and the whole team gets it, which I hope they don't. They're still set up because the two best players on the team, they're ready to go still. Will they coexist with each other? Probably not. They probably hate each other. We don't know that. But I think from a scientific standpoint, which I'm not, I think this might be a good thing for Utah. They could run deeper, but we got to see how many players are tested positive.
If that's the case, where we start seeing all-stars having to sit out 3 or 4 games in a series, do you think the asterisk for this year's champion will be even stronger than it was previously?
All depends on who goes out. If you're got the guy on the bench that doesn't really mean much to your team, it won't be that much. But if you got a guy like LeBron James goes out and the Lakers get knocked out of the playoffs, the LeBron fans, I think they're just as bad as the Cowboy fans. They're going to be, well, this is not fair because LeBron wasn't here. So yes, there's going to be some type of stain on this, but a championship's a championship. This is going to be a championship known as the shortened season, or the season that was cut short and it came back with 8 games with no fans. I do believe that. I think the NBA, and I was a firm believer, and I thought about this last night. I said, instead of bringing the whole team back, what if you just brought 2 players from each team and they just duke it out and did it that way? I think that would be much safer, and also it would go by even quicker. For the Lakers, it would be LeBron and AD. For the Sixers, it could be Ben and Joel. And for Boston, it could be Jason Tatum and Kemba Walker. I don't know, but I thought that would be a pretty good idea too. And it might be even safer because think about it. You're trying to socially distance 15 players on the bench plus coaches. And no one really wants to wear a mask when playing. So I think it's going to be interesting how the NBA does this. There's still some flaws to the bubble that I don't appreciate, and we just have to go with it. We just have to see what's going on.
Out of all 4 major sports, it appears right now the NBA has done the best job as far as planning and hopefully now executing. And despite that, there are still an immense amount of struggles. So just to put this in perspective of how difficult of a situation they're dealing with right now, the NBA has been very well run over the past few years. They've handled things correctly. For the most part, it seems like they've handled a lot of things that we know of. So the fact that they've been able to do as much as they have at planning and doing things like that, and there's still going to be concerns, that demonstrates how difficult and how tall of an order this is. So continued appreciation to the NBA of what they've been doing. We've seen the MLB and things like that, and how things have been bad so far. So hopefully moving forward, we can limit the spread, the bubble theory, things like that. Hopefully they can continue to be on that. Gavin, any other final statements before we shift to our final segment of the day?
No, I think Adam Silver is a great great commissioner. I've said that multiple times, and I know you said it too. So yeah, there's gonna be great to watch. Basketball's coming back, but I still think there's some flaws to the bubble that weren't thought out, planned well, or anything. So we just have to see what's going on.
All right, great. So immediately following this, we have our guest on. We'll be back right after this. Would you like to know how you can support the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show? If so, head down to the comments on our YouTube channel. You will see 2 links there. The first is our Teespring, where you can see a wide variety of apparel products, including our signature product, the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show sweatshirts, offered in a variety of different colors, including gray, navy blue, and more. Finally, we have our Patreon page, where you can become a monthly donation member. 10% of all donations go towards an organization of our viewers' choice. We hope that you enjoyed today's episode, and if you can't donate, that's okay, because you can always share this. And just for those who haven't had a chance to tune into all of our shows, we did make the official announcement here. Every day we remind people as well on Instagram. We talk about 10% of all donations this month are going to be going to Shriners Hospital for Children. So if you're interested in donating or helping, that video explains how. And if you have any questions, you can always leave a comment, and we'll always be making sure that we answer those questions. We have a Q&A on Friday as well, asking about it. So plenty of resources there to keep you covered. We're now going to be bringing in our guest, as well as bringing Gavin back in. An assistant high school basketball coach, knows his way around the high school basketball, the collegiate level, as well as the NBA. Dom Amoroso. Dom, it's great to have you on, man. It's great to see you. Obviously, just being able to talk about sports times like this, our goal, obviously, with the show is to be able to unify and always be able to consistently just do whatever we can to keep everyone united. So it's great to have you on. Thanks for being on today.
No, thank you guys for having me on it. And, I truly respect what you guys are doing. Zach and Gavin, I've known you guys for quite some time now. And Zach, to see both yourself and your brother getting into this, sports talk industry, which before I got into coaching was something I heavily considered. It kind of reminds me of myself at a younger age. And you guys are, real good at what you do. I like the ebb and flow of your show, how you guys bounce off each other. So I'm really happy to be on.
Thank you for joining us.
Definitely great. So how we'll run it, we are going to start off talking about just high school, collegiate basketball, and then I'll shift it over to Gavin. And then we do have one more topic I know we're going to speak about with you, which we had planned prior to the show. Should be some quite exciting things. So I'll start off with it right now. Fortunately, because we were out of the season for basketball at the high school level now for college, we were about to go into March Madness. But let's start at the high school level. Now, off-season workouts are not uncommon for higher levels of sports. What are some things that have had to change for maybe your high school basketball programs across the country that have been affected by the coronavirus, and how have you been able to mitigate that, and how are players currently keeping in shape and making sure they're getting their practice in?
Well, the biggest thing is no AAU. And this was my first year back on the AAU circuit. I took a year off between, just kind of focus on school. I'm with Philly Pride now. They're on the Under Armour Association. I'm an assistant with the 15 and under team. So the biggest thing was no AAU. Now there's, things the NCAA is working on to make up for that missed time. But that's the biggest thing. In terms of workouts, obviously here in Pennsylvania, now we're in the yellow phase. We're going into the green at the end of this week. But while we were in the red, we were doing a lot of Zoom meetings with the kids, just going over film, going over offensive and defensive stuff. A lot of our staff meetings were done through Zoom. Zoom, obviously, I think everybody's getting their best use out of Zoom at this point. But, we're kind of transitioning back into the gym now. There's obviously going to be safety protocols we have to take. But, luckily, a lot of the outdoor parks, I'm at Chichester High School, a lot of the outdoor parks in that area, the rims have been put back up. So the past 2 weeks I've been working out. Kids that play for us, socially distanced, to say the least, to comply with everything, having a kid at each basket, and myself in a mask, even though it's outdoors. I just want to be able to give the parents that peace of mind that I'm taking the right protocols to deal with what's going on right now. So in terms of off-season stuff, a lot of stuff has been remote, and then the recruiting piece as well. But the bright side is, from a coach's perspective, a lot of these coaching clinics where you'd spend $200-300 on to travel and get to the clinic, it was free this year. So, that's kind of where we've been at off-season wise.
Great. And so how has it went for the recruiting process? Have you been getting requests for film maybe more? Maybe there's a lot more with virtual meetings. Unfortunately, coaches can't really come out and see workouts. I'm not quite familiar with the pipeline for that, but I'm curious how for maybe rising seniors who now, because they weren't able to have some of these opportunities over the summer, maybe high schools are going to be getting more visited by scouts, or there are going to be more fall and winter programs to get maybe right now rising seniors more opportunities before they're getting any offers.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. Obviously, for the kids that are bona fide Division I players, there's still some stuff they're going to miss, but not as much as a kid that's a D2 or a D3, where the recruiting opportunities aren't necessarily as big in the summer. Where you're really relying off of high school basketball. In terms of kids that I've been dealing with in the recruiting process with, a lot more requests for film. One of our rising seniors actually just took an official visit down to Hood College in Maryland. He's trying to play basketball and baseball in college. And in Maryland, I think things were a little more open, so they were able to actually have him on campus and do a visit. And they offered him, on the spot for both sports within that visit. So, like I said, everything's kind of been a lot more remote. But in terms of, the communication, it's been pretty strong. The college coaches have been excellent. And like I said, going back to the coaching clinics, a lot of these coaches have used clinics as a way to kind of, continue to put their school out there and kind of, pull back the curtain a little bit into their program. So I think, it's changed a lot, temporarily. I think everybody, keeps saying this is only temporary, which, we all like to think. There's still a lot of unknowns ahead. But in terms of the recruiting process, for most kids, I don't think, the college coaches have missed the beat with the kids they want to recruit.
Right. And so shifting it over, I just have a few more questions, more shifting into the college side now. March Madness, unfortunately, this year did not happen. We know for the reasoning very early on in March with the coronavirus and things like that. I think one game was started and was cut at halftime. And so I'm curious to hear what were you kind of seeing as a Final Four this year? Maybe potentially, I know this year there was no true dominant team, at least from my perspective, as we've seen in the past with a couple of years. Villanova a few years back was very strongly the number one team when they beat Michigan, and so UNC the year before that. So I'm curious to hear how could that have potentially shaped out this year, and what could this mean for potentially some players who were on the bubble of entering the NBA draft, or maybe doing something along those lines, maybe potentially staying another year now.
Well, to answer the first question, I probably between November and March, I changed who was going to be in my Final Four a million times. I think we all like to think we do, but some teams that I thought really had a good shot to be, in the home stretch of this thing, Florida State obviously was a team that I really enjoyed watching throughout the year and studying as a coach. Leonard Hamilton is one of my favorite coaches. He's one of the best coaches in the country, year in and year out. They were 11 guys deep, as his teams always are, but they were extremely long. They could switch 1 through 5 on defense, which is something, that's becoming more and more of a trend, at the college game, because it's what's happening at the pro game, the ability to switch defensively. Florida State was a team I really liked. I put stock into Kansas every year, but they let me down. But, I liked what they had. In terms of, the quote-unquote local teams, I wasn't big on Villanova this year just because of the fact that, I think they lack, more playmakers than they usually have. But I think they'll be, in it next year. Penn State was a team that I really thought could go deep. And I was, on social media, I was really adamant about the fact that, I really thought this was a team that, maybe it wasn't a Final Four team, but maybe it was a team we could sneak into the Elite Eight. And, if they got on the right road, they could have definitely been there. Ohio State was a team as well that I liked, from the beginning of the year to the end. Coach Holtman's one of the best in the country. And Maryland as well. I'm a little biased with Maryland. One of my former college coaches, and Matt Brady, is an assistant down there under Coach Turgeon, and they have 2 local kids in Dante Scott from Imhotep Charter and Hakeem Hart from Roman Catholic. And, I was happy to see the development those guys were going through. And, I was really impressed at times with Maryland this year. But, every year with March Madness, I think it's such an open field. In terms of, next year, I think you're going to see some teams have some guys back that that you wouldn't expect to be back because of the fact the NBA has extended that deadline to enter the draft. And it all really depends on how a lot of these programs reload.
Right, and so it amazes me every year how competitive the ACC is, and now the Big Ten is starting to get up there. I have one more question. I'm going to shift it over to Gavin. What are some of your thoughts on the increasing popularity of some of these players trying to do the G League entrance program versus college or maybe playing international ball for a few years? We know the separation from high school, the one and done for a lot of guys as well. What are some of your thoughts on that? And I'm sure from a lot of your high school experience, college is most likely the number one choice. But now we're starting to see some other options, some other ways of entrance into the NBA. I'm curious what some of your thoughts are. And then, Gavin, I know you have some questions as well. We'll shift it to you.
Well, it's a great question. First off, and you guys touched on it earlier in the show, Adam Silver, I think right now is the best commissioner in sports. And that's, me not just being biased as a basketball guy, but, he's very pragmatic, compared to Goodell and Gary Bettman. And, let's not get started on Rob Manfred. But, Adam Silver, has a real good pulse on things, and I think the one thing he realized with the G League, aside from the fact that a lot of these guys are itching, to get that professional experience, is the fact that, in this country right now, there's a real high entrepreneurial spirit. You have kids coming out of high school and even early in college, starting their own business, making their own brand. And LeBron James, is an athlete, who really embodies the fact that he runs himself as a brand. He has his team of guys, the Maverick Carters, the Randy Mims, the Rich Paul, the guys that are around him for business reasons because he conducts himself as a brand. I think a lot of players want to follow that model. And, the NCAA has not been great by any means, with keeping up with the times, even though, I know there's, things out there that, college athletes are going to get paid. These kids, if they have the chance to go make, to make the money now and get developed for the NBA, the G League is becoming more and more of a viable option. So I think Adam Silver's done an awesome job, like I said, just keeping his finger on the pulse and realizing, what adjustments have to be made. And I think, you look at the Jalen Greens of the world, I think Jonathan Kuminga, is going to be another one that, we see go to the G League, and they're the guys that are going to kind of spark, this rise in kids going from high school to the G League just because they can go make money and they can develop, and have a direct pipeline being, within the NBA.
Well, you're right. I'm a firm believer that they should go straight from high school into the NBA, like the old days. If you're really good enough to do that. Obviously, Zion Williamson made a lot of noise coming out. Same thing with Mikey Williams. And I have a question for you. So you see Mikey Williams a lot on social media, versus June Flight, and then you also got Bronny James. And so I want to ask you, who do you like better down the line? Do you like Mikey Williams more, or do you like Bronny James?
Well, to answer your question, straight up, I do like Mikey a little more. Neither of them are the best player in their class, respectively. If you ask me, I think the best player in this year's freshman class is depending on what you consider our backyard, but it's DJ Wagner at Camden High School. I think DJ is better, than both of them. I think DJ is, one of the best players in the country, period, regardless of class. Obviously there's, legacy to that with his father being DeJuan Wagner and the grandfather being, also DeJuan Wagner. And, the kid's an excellent scorer. And, his team, in my opinion, is probably going to be one of the top 10 teams in the country next year. I'm really excited to go across the bridge and watch Camden. They're actually playing Sierra Canyon next year. I like Bronny, but, I do think a lot of his buzz comes from the fact that, his dad's the best player in the world. I try to stick to, the credible basketball sources. Gavin, I talk to a lot of different people about the game, and, just seeing on Facebook and Twitter, I'm watching Bronny tonight. Well, it's like, I get it. The kid's very talented. But, I don't necessarily think he's, the best in his class, and Mikey Williams, has obviously also garnered a lot of attention because, he keeps talking about, you know, the potential of going to an HBCU with everything that's going on in the current state of the world right now is something, you know, that there's speculation toward, you know, maybe the top players start going to HBCUs. Do I think Mikey's going to do that? I think it's 50-50. As of right now, I do think it'll change. But to answer your question, I do like Mikey a little more.
Well, I do too. I feel like Mikey has a more like finished, polished game almost. A few things he can work on. I think Bronny has saw like a lot to prove. He's still young. I think he's a grade below me. Another thing I want to ask you. So we talked about, you touched on college players, you know, not getting paid. My cousin was one of those college athletes, and it's crazy because if someone hands them like, let's say like $200, right? Let's say like they automatically, like if you do a signing and they get paid $200 to do a signing, they automatically have a problem with it. Trevor Lawrence, to be example, Trevor Lawrence and his girlfriend started GoFundMe for something that had nothing to do with trying to fund Trevor Lawrence. So I want to ask you this. Do you think that the NCAA has a problem, or should be? I don't know what the right word is. I wouldn't say kind of like crucified. We're not even crucified, but more like just pointing fingers as bad guys. Like, because every time they find out someone had money or gotten money to go to a school or did a little signing for, like, let's say $200, they tend to have a problem with it. So my question for you is, why is it such a big deal if these guys get a little bit of money for their own name?
You know, to not to, you know, necessarily get political. You know, I think the NCAA, you know, has had a history, you know, that hasn't necessarily changed, of the fact that, you know, these guys are, you know, are students, not necessarily, you know, young men that are, you know, just trying to find their way in this world. And, you know, young men and women for that matter, they're just trying to find their way in this world and trying to make a future for themselves. And I think, you know, what's been lost sight of is the fact that, you know, to make a future in this world, you know, you got to make money.
Yeah.
So, you know, the NCAA just hasn't been, you know, adaptive to change. They haven't been receptive to change. And it's a huge problem because, you know, there are, you know, a lot of coaches speaking out about it. There's a lot of athletes speaking out about it. You know, there's legislature in certain states that's in the process of getting passed to make changes to allow these athletes to get paid. You know, a majority of these, you know, college athletes in football and basketball are coming from, you know, homes below the poverty line. You know, whether we want to, you know, whether we like it or not, you know, these are young men now that have, you know, that just aren't going to school to play football. They're going to school to provide for their family. They're going to school to provide a better future for themselves. And, you know, it's what they have to do. And it's something, you know, that the NCAA needs to respect, that, you know, not everybody is from the 1%, you know. And so do I think Dr. Emmert, you know, is somebody to be crucified for this? Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, like I said, there's too many rules that don't allow these, you know, these guys to make profit off of themselves. But the school is bringing in millions of dollars a year. You know, look at Penn State, for example. Penn State, you know, the economy of State College is driven in August, you know, from August to December by football, by the fact that, you know, you have all these guys playing football. They can't get any of that money.
Well, I agree with you, and I kind of find it unfair because I wouldn't go back to like Zion Williamson. Zion Williamson, they made a lot of money on Zion Williamson. Duke and the college basketball. Zion Williamson, they made a lot of money off Kobe White too, and RJ Barrett, Cam Reddish, and that's just those two teams alone. And I know we got to get on to the last time. I just got one more question for you too. Who is your GOAT? Who do you think is the greatest of all time basketball player? We get into heated arguments over Jordan and LeBron. So I want to get. So what side are you on? Who do you think is the GOAT of the NBA?
Well, everybody looks at me like I have 10 heads, and I understand why. You know, if you know me, you know I'm an analytics person. I'm a heavy numbers person. I think the best player of all time, you know, to be honest with you, and you know, I won't be surprised if anybody's eyes pop out of their heads. It's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Okay. You know, the man, you know, and you know, if we're talking just the NBA, you know, that I get it, but you know, I look at, you know, the whole scope of basketball. The man won at every level, and you know, he continued to have, you know, great years when Magic was with him. Now, you know, I understand the argument of, well, you know, when he was dominating as Lou Alcindor, You know, a lot of the good players were in the ABA at the time. I get that, but you know, what's he supposed to do about that? You know, but you know, he's the all-time leading scorer. You know, he won, you know, several MVPs. And like I said, you know, the guy is a winner. You know, I'm not saying Jordan's not a winner. And I'm not saying, you know, LeBron isn't, you know, isn't the most talented by any means. But, you know, from my personal opinion, you know, I've always held Kareem in the highest regard.
Interesting. Zach, you heard that? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, all right?
I've heard the debate, and I've sided with it before. And so one of my thought processes, and I bring up the 3-point line a lot as far as identifying how difficult a defense is, whether from the perimeter defense back in when Kareem played wasn't as existent. You were in the paint. Everyone was in the paint. And I remember last year watching the Sixers Raptors series. I'm not sure if you ever watched any film from that, Dom, but you take a look at a lot of these guys, and they were given. You know, you weren't playing perimeter D on guys like Ben Simmons, and it makes sense. It's common to do that. They condensed the paint. They did something to the Sixers that no other team they had seen all season. And so I was so fascinated by it after game one. And so I was surprised the Sixers were able to rebound from that, no pun intended. But as far as talking about the condensed paint, back in Kareem's day, he had to get through so much even if they weren't as talented as they are now. And again, like, what's he going to do about it? He's still a very talented player. So it's a legitimate argument. And so I definitely see him up there. Definitely three different opinions here. We'll have to have you on another time to
Absolutely. I love you.
You know, Zach, you know what? I'm gonna let you have your opinion today because I'm not in the mood to argue GOAT debate. All right, we could bring Dom back for another day for that. But look,
I love you.
Look, Dom, you got to come back for that because you just brought a whole new person into it. So this is gonna be interesting. But what's next? What we got for Dom next?
And finally today, Dom, known well as a Patriots fan, I'm willing to accept that considering Super Bowl 52. Talking about today, we're gonna break down, can the dynasty continue? We have about 8 minutes here to go through it. We'll go kind of like a round table. I'll start off, then go into Dom, then Gavin. In my opinion, it does continue. Again, Dom, I know how you feel about do your job, the culture up there. I think it's not a happy place to play, but people say you want to win, you go to New England. You want to get paid, you go somewhere else. And I totally agree with it. And I respect what New England does, and even as an Eagles fan, even as a NFL fan, which means if you're not a Patriots fan, you're probably going to hate the Patriots. You hate them because they win. And so since 2000, they've been pretty much the most successful franchise, 6 rings in, I believe, 9 Super Bowls, correct? They lost 2 to the Giants, 1 to the Eagles. Let's go NFC East. But tracing it back, here's why I think they're going to continue to succeed. First of all, their defense is the best in the league. Their secondary is outstanding. I know that their linebackers this year have some of them have taken some exits, one with to Miami, but I still think that they have what it takes to really become a good squad with a great secondary. The way that those guys play, Stephon Gilmore, the McCourty twins, they have a few guys that are kind of sleepers up there. I know the guy Hardman is actually a really talented player. And so their defense is just too good to not be at least a 500 team. And you look at a dysfunctional team like the Chicago Bears who had a bad O-line this year, and they still had a top-tier defense, and the quarterback play wasn't great, and their play calling on offense was just awful. And I went off on the Bears before on this show, but just the defense alone is going to give the Patriots at least 7 or 8 wins, in my opinion. And all that Jarrett Stidham or whoever is going to start, all they got to do is do their job. You still have James White, Sony Michel, Rex Burkhead. I'm not quite sure what the tight end room's looking like right now, but I know they drafted 1 or 2, I think, actually. So, but as far as the receivers, Julian Edelman is going to be healthy this year. He was not healthy last year at all. I think that's going to be good for them. I think N'Keal Harry is able to bounce back. All Stidham has to do is fit in the system. Josh McDaniels is a very smart guy. Tom Brady, I've said before, I don't think Tom Brady becomes a GOAT without Belichick. He now is, I think he's going to succeed in Tampa. I think that Brady has become a better player, and he can be on his own now. But before, I think it definitely was a system. Expect a lot of running the ball, a lot of screens, a lot of the basics, and that's what New England's good at. So I think that the dynasty, I'm not going to say they're going to win a Super Bowl next year. I think Stidham's going to need at least a year to grow. I think he is the answer, to be honest. He was at Auburn. He won the Iron Bowl. I remember very exciting watching it back then. He's not a scrub. He's not a D3 never heard of, which New England, ironically, is known to make those guys pretty good anyways. I have confidence in that team. I think that they're still going to be able to continue. Dom, we'll go to you next.
Yeah, well, my unbiased opinion is that the Buffalo Bills do win the division next year. I think, Buffalo is a team on the rise. But, to focusing here on the Patriots, in terms of Stidham, I'm not 100% sold on him. I'll have to see what he looks like this year. You have to at least give him a year. We can't jump on him and get rid of him after a year or want to run him out of town. obviously, you know, a lot of this draft for the Patriots was about, you know, loading up on the defensive side of the football. And, you know, what I would say is, you know, it's no surprise. You know, a lot of people thought, you know, they were going to take Jalen Hurts, who the Eagles ended up taking. And I wanted them to take Jalen Hurts. You know, like I said, you know, one thing that, you know, sold me about Jalen Hurts is the kid's a winner. But, you know, I'm not really surprised, you know, that Belichick decided to go with defense in the first round, as he historically does. You know, there's been drafts where, you know, there's, you know, a good offensive weapon on the board late in the first round that the Patriots should take, and Belichick goes and takes a defensive player. You know, the one thing that remains true in New England, and I'm glad you brought it up, is culture. You know, and it's, you know, the mystique of what, you know, goes on inside of, you know, the football offices up in Foxborough isn't going to change. You know, whether, you know, it continues to lead to more Super Bowls is a different story. But, you know, I do think, you know, it's certainly proven, you know, in an era of, you know, the NFL where, you know, the salary cap is pretty hard and free agency, and, you know, now we're starting to see the trade deadline kind of evolve a little bit more, kind of like how it has in the NBA. You know, the Patriots have kind of remained constant and true to their formula. I think they'll be around. Do I think the dynasty continues, though? I hope it does. You know, I don't mind a couple more Super Bowls. But, you know, if it doesn't continue, I won't be upset. I had my day in the sun as a Patriots fan. I think they'll be around, though, to answer the question.
First of all, I had no idea that you were a Patriots fan out here. First of all, because
Really?
I had a Cowboys fan on the show, and it was all right. I guess I had to put my differences away with them, and I got to put my differences away with you now too with that Patriots fan. Look, I'll be honest with you. I think the dynasty is over, but I am excited. You know why I'm excited? Because the narrative has always been, was it Brady or was it Belichick? I think it was both together. I think both of them need each other to complement one another. Yes, Belichick is a really great coach and a really well-minded coach, and he thinks of things and he can tear you apart. And if he knows this one guy's a weakness, he will make your day horrible. Now, here's the thing. Who was that guy that made sure that day went horrible? Tom Brady. I think without Tom Brady, yes, you're not going to win as many games this year, but it's going to be great to see if it was a system. Remember, Jacoby Brissett looked amazing. Jimmy Garoppolo looked amazing. If you want to go back to it, Jimmy Garoppolo was supposed to be the guy after Tom Brady, but they ended up with Tom Brady. I think felt a little threatened, so they shipped Jimmy G out to town. He goes to Super Bowl and loses. Jacoby Brissett, he was the guy in Indiana. He didn't do a horrible job, but he didn't do the best, but he kept him relevant with the pieces he had around him. So now let me get back on track. I think the dynasty is over. I think there will be a new dynasty, but it's not going to be a reign of terror. I end up seeing you guys get the first pick overall, and I see you guys going out and getting Trevor Lawrence, which I would hate to see because that means you guys are going to start winning again. Now, on the other hand, I'm gonna be honest with you. The New England Patriots has been a reign of terror for long times, and Dom, and you can agree to that they've been on a reign of terror since the early 2000s. And I think the last 2 to 3 years is when we see the New England Patriots be more vulnerable than ever. As you say, I don't think now people say, well, Tom Brady lost the game in the playoffs. No, Derrick Henry happened. He hatched and he came out and he just ran over everybody. Just ask how Earl Thomas feels about that as well. Now back to the question. I do believe that the defensive dynasty is going to start because New England is never known for a great defense. They just know they had a great system where they could put it together and those players worked well with one another. Now that they actually have actual real talent and Stephon Gilmore, who's arguably the best corner in the league right now, they have the McCourty brothers. You know, Devin McCourty is a bona fide top tier free safety. And then you gotta look around. All right, the linebackers aren't the worst. You know, the front line isn't that bad either. The offensive line on the opposite side of the ball is not that horrible either. It's just the main question mark. Who is Jarrett Stidham? Who is that? I never heard of him before in my life, and I know we gotta go. So I'm gonna leave this. I do see the New England Patriots going 3-13 this year, and the 3 wins you're going to get. And yes, Dom, because I'm doing this because you're a Patriots fan, they're going to be 3-13 this year. They're going to. I think the teams that go to the playoffs this year is one. The reason why you guys get 3 wins, you're going to beat the Jets twice because you know why? Apparently, Sam Darnold sees Casper the Friendly Ghost whenever he plays, so he's going to throw y'all the ball all day long because he can't see nobody else good ghost. And I think the Dolphins sneak in as a wild card. National 9-7 with Tua Tagovailoa, and obviously Josh Allen is Josh Allen, and he's only but better. I think Josh Allen might even have a career high season in some things. So I'm gonna leave it like this. Trevor Lawrence might be the quarterback next year for New England. That's gonna be scary. That's gonna be a scary thing to think of. And I think it's more Belichick. I don't think it's one another. I think it's both together.
And then as we close up, I know we're closing on the hour. I'll close up with this for our viewers. There was one thing that really stuck out to me I found so funny this year. Whether the dynasty is over or not, Bill Belichick, I believe it was the very first question that was asked him in that press conference, the support that his fan base gave him through thick and thin. And he sat there, took a deep sigh and said, there hasn't been that much thin around here, in my opinion. So thanks to everyone for joining in today. We'll be back tomorrow at 12 o'clock. Dom, absolute pleasure to have you on. We look forward to having you on again in the future. Gavin, same as always.